Hey guys, I'm recovering from a sore throat right now, so it's gonna be hard for me to speak. But while this is still fresh in my mind, I wanted to express my thoughts on the Steven Wilson concert last night. So consider this to be like a general review, if you will. And as expected, I had a lot of fun at the show. This was really great. This was the last night of the American tour before they head down to Mexico City in Los Angeles at Club Nokia. And this was just yesterday. I took my girlfriend with me. I introduced her to Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. She's really been getting into them. And we both decided to go to the show, and yes, it was an awesome time, and let me tell you why, of course. So we were able to find an actually pretty convenient place to park, like price-wise, because the place that I found, while it was a little ways away from Club Nokia by foot, it was actually very cheap by LA standards. It was about $4 just to park till about 2:30 a.m. While if I were to park like right next to Club Nokia itself, it probably would have been about $25. So um, that itself is actually really good, just price-wise. So yeah, save a little bit of money. And anyway, the thing I really stress about going to concerts is arriving extremely early, sometimes about like 6 hours early, just because of traffic and just lines and all that. And that actually paid off really nicely because we got to the Club Nokia like very early. There were a few staff members outside, and they said, "Hey, if you come back at 7 o'clock, you can go wait in like the VIP lounge and all that before doors even open." So, hey, yeah, that is actually really cool. So we come back at 7 o'clock. We're just hanging out in downtown LA, and we go inside, and it's a really cool VIP lounge. It's got like dimly lit lights, but it just provides like a more like relaxed, tranquil, or party club sort of atmosphere to it. It's not like overtly loud or anything like that. It's just nice and calm with like uh, interchanging lights. There's couches on this one big side of the room. There's a bar like just directly across from all these couches. We get to sit all we want. And while I was waiting for us to actually let us into the venue, I was just listening to a bit of the studio album before listening to Steven Wilson perform it. And then finally, the doors open, and we go down like a series of staircases. There's like two staircases, like directly parallel to each other. They're kind of just like two and one. One staircase is going down, and there's another one that like goes through it. It's kind of like a sort of twist staircase. It's pretty unusual. I don't really see staircases like that, just like two directly next to each other. And I go down one staircase. It actually leads outside, so an usher had to lead me, Danny, and a couple of other confused people to the other staircase, which led to the actual venue itself. Inside, it's pretty dark. It's got a bar like directly in the back, and then of course you have the stage and the stage setup, the instruments, and all that. You hear like a vinyl recording of like prog rock if it was like recorded in like the 40s or something, just like by the sound of it or something. It's very ambient, very old and musky sounding, but very atmospheric and haunting at the same time. And definitely set a really good tone. I can imagine Steven Wilson listening to stuff like that. And then when we sit down, the lights dimmer even more. There's a projection on the screen, um, like displaying the album cover, "Raven That Refused to Sing," which of course they were touring in support of. And I guess it's a visual like slideshow ish thing. It shows just a regular moon at first, and then it just like there's clouds surrounding it, and it like changes into like completely different faces every time. It's just a very interesting visual setting. From where I was sitting, I can only see about half of it because the curtain and the wall is pretty much a bitch. But they actually had TVs on like the different sides of the room. I was sitting on like the right side of the theater, and while I could see the screen on the actual stage itself, I only saw like about the left side of it. Um, but they had a TV on the side too, and it was actually really cool when you see the different bands, or when you see the band members playing their solos and stuff like that. So it's a very cool visual screen. Um, anyway, on to the performance. Just after the atmospheric, just ambient music stops, the lights are completely dark. You see some figures walking on stage. It, of course, is the band members. They, of course, everyone except for Steven Wilson walks on stage, and then suddenly you see like this tall figure walking just gently towards the stage, and suddenly, boom, Steven Wilson, he raises his hands, makes some gestures, and of course, bam, Luminol starts with a bang, and of course, the performance is off to a great start, and it just continues on Overhaul. Um, yeah, like I said, this performance was spectacular. Everyone, just all pistols, all pistons were blaring, and it was just a spectacular time. Um, I really don't have any complaints about the actual performance itself. Everybody played like absolutely top notch. I guess there maybe were a few missed notes or something from David Guthrie, I think. When I heard "Drive Home," I think the solo sounded a little off, but hey, I mean it's a few missed notes. Who cares? Um, that's not really who cares if they missed a couple of notes. That's fine. And it's not like Kelly Gray or anything like that, who basically butchers an entire solo. But I digress. Um, this show was definitely a very, very just atmospheric, but also just rocking show. It's not the kind of show in which everyone's standing up and raising their horns and stuff like that. Everybody's sitting down. It's like going to a Genesis show in the 1970s, only it's the 2010s and you're seeing Steven Wilson. It's like a modern version of that. It's like a modern version of going to like live at Shepperton 1973 for Genesis, only it's at Club Nokia in Los Angeles instead of England. You get what I'm talking about. It's a much different mindset overall than going to a Opeth or Metallica or Winter Sun show. Um, that's actually one of my complaints. One of the I actually everybody was sitting down and stuff. That's not my complaint that everybody's sitting down. No, my major complaint was that while everybody was like restrained, everybody has their arms down. There's this one fucker like right in front of me, like this little kid. I think he looked like he was about 14 or 15 or something. He's just like raising his hand in the air, just going. He's basically just doing that like throughout like the first half of the show, and while I'm trying to see Nick Beggs and Steven Wilson like doing their thing on stage, and this little fucker just keeps raising his fucking arm in the air so aimlessly, and my god, I'm like directly behind him. I just want to chop his arm off. My god. Um, that's like one of the major complaints I had. Nothing to do with the actual performance, but just while I was sitting down trying to watch the show. Of course, he stopped like over time, but I mean, at the time, like when I was watching like the early songs and stuff, it was very annoying. But I mean, he restrained himself over time, but yeah, just at the time, it was very annoying. I hated it. The sound itself was actually really good, I have to say. While it was very loud, and I didn't even bring earplugs or anything like that, at the same time, I probably didn't even need to bring earplugs because this was actually a very controlled, like, loud performance. You know what I mean? I've been to some concerts, like the Iron Maiden show I went to last summer, and it was like deafening loud. Like after I left the show, my ears were ringing. Um, at this show, while it was very loud, after I left, I didn't feel like my ears were like ringing or it was very hard to hear people. And there were some extremely loud moments, like during this performance, like during the performance of Holy Drinker, there was like before Stephen Wilson sings a couple lyrics, like after he sings the verses, Nick Beggs has his Chapman stick, Stephen Wilson is playing the bass as well, and it has like, it's like an explosion of bassness. Like right after he sings the verse line, it's just like a boom, bass explosion. Pretty much, that's all I could say about it. It's just an explosion. It really just like rocks the ground pretty much. Whenever I heard it, because you're hearing the Chapman stick and the bass going off at the same time, and it's just like a loud, like atomic bomb of just bassness, pretty much. But at the same time, it was really cool, and it brought a lot of power to the song. And yeah, I really don't have that much to complain about the performance and the show itself. It was all very spectacular. The drummer, who I believe his name is Chad, he was touring for the American dates. He was very mesmerizing to watch on stage. Like, I spent a good amount of time like watching him, like doing his thing, and just his performance was very mesmerizing, along with Stephen Wilson and Nick Beggs just doing their thing. I couldn't watch like the saxophonist and keyboardist really well because they were like they were blocked by the curtain and the wall and stuff, but I was able to see them on the screen, and it was actually really cool. They had some really great standout performances, each and every one of the band members, which is really good. Yeah, they're all very technically proficient. Stephen Wilson really knows how to pick the right people to um, demonstrate his musical songwriting craft, his abilities on stage. He just knows how to pick the right people to properly demonstrate Stephen Wilson's own musical vision, and it's represented very well on stage. There was a great majority of songs from the new album as well as Grace for Drowning. This set list goes as follows. Liminal was the first song. Then after that is Drive Home, The Pin Drop, Postcard, The Holy Drinker, Deform to Form a Star, The Watchmaker, Index, Insurgentes, Harmony Korine, No Part of Me, Raider 2, the massive, like almost 25-minute epic, The Raven That Refused to Sing, and the cover of Radioactive Toy, which technically isn't a like Porcupine Tree song. Stephen Wilson recorded that entire thing himself, so it's technically a solo song, but just with Porcupine Tree slapped on it. Just the names Porcupine Tree just slapped on it. But yeah, pretty much, yeah. So yeah, that is actually quite a long set list. In fact, it was over 2.5 hours long. It was very long. But at the same time, it was very hypnotizing and addictive. So that represents the mark of a truly great live show. I actually was able to record two of these songs live, Drive Home and The Watchmaker, but I couldn't actually like make a movie or like a video of it. But I was able to just like record the audio for it because I didn't want to like bug anyone else because nobody was like raising their hands and like holding up cameras. I've seen people with their cameras up, but it was done to a more restrained degree. And since the policy really is like no like video recording or anything like that, I just used my jacket pocket. I just used the voice memo app and just placed it in my pocket while watching the show with my own two eyes. So yeah, pretty much that's what I did. If you guys want to see the audio I recorded, here's a Drive Home right here and The Watchmaker right there. So yeah, if you want to watch that, you're more than willing to. I have the links for them right there. Um, And that's all I really have to say about the performance itself. Very great stuff. There really isn't much to say about it that isn't bad or anything like that. Maybe a bit loud, but not deafening. It didn't make your ears ring, so that's always good. Um, I didn't get much merchandise, although, like before the show started, there was some guy like going out and passing out like official tour programs, so I was able to get this, which is really cool. There's a ton of photos, there's poems, stuff like that, and I think the official story for the Raven that refused to sing is actually throughout this entire thing. Like, yeah, there's 3 pages right there, and it basically tells the whole story of basically the album, and it's actually really, really cool. Oh, and I forgot to mention like Steven Wilson's on-stage banter. Like in between songs, he would use like a mix of storytelling, sarcasm, and occasional like mocking of like any hecklers in the crowd and stuff. I heard a couple of people going "Free Bird," and he's like, "Oh yes, I forgot about that joke. I'm glad we got that out of the way." And I guess some guy was like, "I love you," and Steven Wilson was like, "Thank you, I love you too." He's just so funny. I love how sarcastic he could be. And I remember he gave advice regarding musicians like selling albums on Amazon. He's like, never, ever, 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 ever read reviews of your albums on Amazon. While he didn't really care too much for the negative reviews, he was more concerned like with some of the positive reviews, like and how ignorant some of the customers were. I guess he saw this one review that said, like, oh, his lyrics are very Tolkien-esque, and I guess he was like, oh, I don't sing too much about Mordor and Sauron and stuff like that. I mostly write about serial killers. There may come a day when I write about Hobbit serial killers or Goblin serial killers. But yeah, seeing him act all sarcastic and stuff on stage was really fun, and yeah, that's all I forgot to mention about Steven Wilson's like concert banter, and anyway, like after the show, I remember like we were walking back to the car, and something really stupid and strange happened. Like as we were just entering into the parkway, I basically was unlocking the car door from as far as the key can even reach, and then suddenly some guy just out of nowhere just like walked into my car and I guess started to like start it up for some reason. I thought he was like valet parking for a second, but then I realized it was public parking, so I figured, what is he doing? I'm like running over. Then all of a sudden it's like this Asian guy. He looked kind of like a jock of some sort, and I guess he's like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to start up the key, and sorry. And that was crazy. I mean, I'm glad he didn't like steal anything or anything like that out of my car. It was just it almost spoiled the entire evening for me, just how strange and just out of nowhere this all turned out. And in the back of my mind, I was predicting something like this would happen ever since I even like parked there in the first place. So maybe I should stop thinking about that for once, because subconsciously these things happen sometimes. But anyway, yeah, that was just kind of a bittersweet ending to the night. Um, but the show itself was spectacular. Steven Wilson was very funny and witty on stage. Everybody had a lot of standout parts in their performances. So there you go. I kind of need to stop it now. My throat is killing me. So sorry if I rambled a little too long. I'm just basically saying whatever's coming up off the top of my head. So yeah. Thank you very much and have a good night.